Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Tom's Take. I want to start today by reading a passage from 1 Samuel 19, and I'm going to start with verse 18. Very quickly, to set the context, David, through the help of his wife, Michal, has escaped from Saul and gone into the wilderness area. And now Saul is hunting him down. Verse 18. When David had fled and made his escape, he went to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. Then he and Samuel went to Naioth and stayed there. Word came to Saul, David is in Naioth at Ramah. So he sent men to capture him. But when they saw a group of prophets prophesying, with Samuel standing there as their leader, the Spirit of God came on Saul's men, and they also prophesied. Saul was told about it, and he sent more men, and they prophesied too. Saul sent men a third time, and they also prophesied. Finally, he, Saul, himself, left for Ramah and went to the great cistern at Succoth. And he asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" "Over in Naioth at Ramah," they said. So Samuel went to Naioth at Ramah, but the Spirit of the Lord came even on him. And he walked along prophesying until he came to Naioth. He stripped off his garments, and he too prophesied in Samuel's presence. He lay naked all that day and all that night. This is why people say, "Is Saul among the prophets?" What an intriguing story. David escapes to Samuel, and they go to Ramah, the Naioth, and as these soldiers come that Saul has sent out to arrest David, to bring him back to Saul, they come into the presence of Samuel and at Ramah, and the Spirit of the Lord overwhelms them, and they start prophesying. 3 times. 3 times this takes place, until Saul himself goes, and the same thing happens to him. Back in 2019, we were having our annual gathering, retreat, now we call them advances, for the Texas Apostolic Prayer Network, and Dutch Sheets was joining us there, but we had also invited Dutch to bring along his daughter, Hannah Sheets Magnus. And she joined him, and we asked her to bring forth a word to us from her generation. In 2019, she decreed over Texas that Texas, has atmospheric domination. We aren't just called to come to a place. Listen to this. We are not called to just come to a place. We are called to rule there. It's time to get in over your head. Get to the higher place and rule from there, not to there. Now, we've heard many words over the last several months, and even over the last year, that we are no longer contending for victory as a state and even as a nation, as the ecclesia. We are now moving from victory and contending for our nation out of a place of victory, or as Hannah would say, out of a place of atmospheric domination, which basically means God has given us the fullness of His anointing of His Spirit over us as the ecclesia in Texas, and He's doing the same with the ecclesia across the nation. We're no longer supposed to kind of cajole and beg and plead with God. He says, look, I have anointed you. I have not just put you in a place like your state. I have placed you in that place as a high place to now show forth my victorious domination over the spiritual nature of the land. Amazing. Atmospheric domination. And also there's a reference there to the high place, which I have been speaking to you over this last few days. We are in the high place. We're on the high ground. We arrived now first. We are not going to be reactive. We're not going to be back on our heels, but we are moving ahead with victory to victory to victory from a place of victory. It's a powerful word. Now, after Hannah had spoken, Dutch then jumped in. And he said this, and I quote, "We must be a company that fights well." Now, he's speaking to our leadership group with Texas. But we always receive a word for Texas and at the same time embrace it for the entire ecclesia of the nation. We must be a company that fights well. There is a mantle on Texas to bring change to America, to legislate and anoint. The greatest year of war will be 2020. Now remember, he said this in 2019, but in 2020, we went into a great season of war that we have now waged through the last 4 years of a corrupt leadership, a corrupt leadership that is over our nation. He goes on to say it will be vile. Our response level needs to be just as powerful or more so than the enemy. We need to decree eternity and keep decreeing. This is a warning for the nation. 2020 will be a continual siege that will release what God is going to do. May the ancient markers of our founders be restored. We are a covenant nation. Therefore, the next move of God will be more than getting people, quote unquote, saved. It will be about recapturing a nation. Some have spoken, and I have too, a rebirthing of a nation. There will be places where covenant was established in the land, places that are markers of God's purpose. Texas needs to visit these places of covenant, calling forth those roots. And we did. We not only went to covenant places within our own state, but we went the beginning of covenant acknowledgement from God with our nation, like at Cape Henry and Philadelphia and York, Pennsylvania, and other places as well. This is a season that God is bringing all these words into fullness. It is a season when the Lord has said, look, I have given you, as my ecclesia, atmospheric domination. An atmospheric domination that basically is released, that when anyone comes into your place or wherever you go into their place, you will carry an atmospheric domination there, which will release the apostolic and the prophetic, which will energize intercessors, which will bring about a great awakening, which is happening, and will bring about a rebirthing of the nation based on my covenant with them at the beginning. Amazing. Now, finally, one of our coordinators, Jimmy Dushek, had released a couple of years before that the Lord was giving us apostolic displacement authority. In other words, wherever we journey with His Spirit and with His authority, He displaces the darkness, the death, and the strategies of the enemy with His authority, His presence, His glory, and His life. And I was just quoting some of those things from Hannah and from Jimmy from my book that came out a couple years ago, Wielding Axe, which is basically the story of what God has been doing not only in but from Texas. I would encourage you to get it. But let me close with this. I was listening to Dutch this morning on his Given 15, and basically it's a strong exhortation to us as the ecclesia to finish the task. Finish releasing the atmospheric domination that He has given us. Don't be lazy. Don't back up. Don't fret. Don't get into a posture of, well, now that we know God is going to do something, we can sit back and watch him do it. No. We are called to occupy the entirety of the land. We are called to take the atmospheric domination, the apostolic displacement authority into all the land. Whether from Texas or from wherever else you are listening to this, don't back up. He's placed us on the high place. He has positioned us for victory. And we will now see the fullness of that victory in the days, weeks, months to come as we witness, by God's grace and strength, the rebirthing of our nation. Blessings to all of you today. Press on in the Lord.